Hey guys, welcome to the Liberal Hive Mind, a channel solely focused on exposing the abundant hypocrisy of the left. I come with good news.
Yes, I see. Good news, everyone!
Well, I guess it depends where you stand politically. It's either good news or the most dreaded scenario and cause for major panic. Who would have guessed it? Donald Trump is surging in the polls once again. After CNN's town hall, all these coping leftoids all over Twitter were claiming that Caitlin Collins got him. Donald Trump looked terrible. How could he attack Eugene Carroll? She's so credible. What a misogynist. What a terrible person. Actually trying to convince us that the CNN town hall was a big loss for Donald Trump. Or, as per usual, it almost felt as if they were trying to convince themselves, as opposed to anybody else. But the reality is the CNN town hall was a perfect moment for Donald Trump because it reinforced his most powerful tool, that it's him against a dishonest and corrupt establishment. And add on top of that, the next week the Durham report releases. It's man versus corrupt Democrat machine, and people tend to root for the underdog, for the little guy taking on the Goliath. A real David versus Goliath situation, that's what's happening. And the more they go after him, well, clearly the more powerful he becomes. His numbers are skyrocketing. Let me show you guys exactly what I mean by that. We've got some stuff to get into, so let's roll the tape. All right, folks, so it seems like we're right back where we started. Here we are roughly 2 years ago, and Donald Trump was absolutely dominating the polls versus Joe Biden. I mean, it wasn't even close. And so Democrats did what they normally do. They went full offensive, launching various different hoaxes, attacking him with multiple investigations in a multi-pronged attack. Pretty much all of it has backfired at this point. All that remains is the Georgia investigation and the classified documents special counsel investigation, both of which are probably at some point going to lead to indictment. At this point, regardless of the merit of the case, I could pretty much guarantee you they're going to charge Donald Trump, and the news is probably going to hit during the primary season or at peak election season. But you just can't keep the guy down. You know, Joe Biden was leading in the polls for a couple months there, and boy has that shifted. The most recent Harvard-Harris poll has Donald Trump now leading by 7 points ahead of Joe Biden. And in the average spread, which includes polls that are over a month old at this point, Trump is leading by 1.4%. And just as expected, his favorability ratings have bounced back tremendously. He's in the high 40s with those same two polls, and actually outperforming Joe Biden significantly in the most recent Harvard-Harris data. In other words, post-town hall, Donald Trump is skyrocketing across the board, and with pollsters that generally underestimate his support. I think it's really the effect of contrast. As news continues to trickle in, people have some of the things that Donald Trump said during that interview at the back of their mind. In the intro to the video, I briefly mentioned the Durham report, and now even with MSNBC's Chuck Todd essentially admitting to the corruption.
Look, trust in the FBI is eroding left and right. Feels like we're in the moment that we need a real church committee, that this is a moment like when the J. Edgar Hoover FBI clearly was no longer helping the American people. There was a moment. This feels like we might be in one of those moments.
Well, Donald Trump's supposed conspiracy theories turned out to be quite accurate, huh? On the issue of Ukraine, Donald Trump made his stance very clear. He was for peace negotiations and an end to the fighting and death of hundreds of thousands of soldiers on both sides.
Absolutely.
Do you want Ukraine to win this war?
I don't think in terms of winning and losing. I think in terms of getting it settled so we stop killing all these people and breaking down this country. I want everybody to stop dying. They're dying. Russians and Ukrainians. I want them to stop dying.
While the Biden administration is taking a little bit of a different approach, the typical Washington warmongering approach. NBC's Alexander confronts Biden's spokesperson John Kirby over assurances that F-16s to Ukraine won't escalate the war with Russia. No, of course not. They're sending F-16 fighter jets as they continue to fight this proxy war. They are escalating the conflict. It will not end anytime soon. And so when Donald Trump says that he's going to put an end to it, it seems like there's some credibility. I mean, there's a stark difference in policy and stance between the two, let's call them leadership styles. One president is following the as long as it takes model, as many billions as it takes, at some point it might even reach trillions, and the other guy wants to put a stop to it. You have one guy who publicly states that he wants the dying to stop on both sides, and you have the other guy, the warmonger, who talks about hundreds of thousands of people dying as if it's nothing.
Bakhmut. Bakhmut is a discussion about whether or not it's been lost or whatever. And well, the truth of the matter is the Russians have suffered over 100,000 casualties in Bakhmut. That's hard to make up. It's hard to make up.
And notice he only mentions Russian losses. Of course, he's not going to say anything about how many Ukrainians died. Probably relevant, especially considering the fact that the Ukrainian side lost this particular battle. Complete and utter disaster. That's what Joe Biden is. That's what he has been. A complete embarrassment on the world stage. Joe Biden was just at the 2023 G7 summit in Japan, in Hiroshima, if I'm not mistaken, and once again, he makes a complete fool of himself. Here he is referring to South Korea's President Yoon Suk-yeol as President Loon of South Korea.
I've spoken at length with President Loon of South Korea. He came to Washington of late.
Here he is, I don't know, just saying words, just more Joe Biden incoherent babbling.
And there's a lot of other, for example, the idea that we're, in terms of taxes, that they refuse to, for example, I was able to balance the budget and pass everything from the global warming bill. Anyway, I was able to cut by $1.7 billion in the first 2 years the deficit that we were accumulating. And because I was able to say to it that the 55 corporations in America that made $400 billion, or $400 billion, that they pay zero in tax. Zero.
And here he is, once again, being a flat-out liar, trying to take credit for the formation of an organization called the Quad.
And what's going on now is, look at the meeting we had here today and yesterday, the Quad. I bet you, maybe some of you thought it, but I doubt many people in this audience or any other audience would have said that 2 years after being elected, I'd be able to convince India, Australia, Japan, and the United States to form an organization called the Quad to maintain stability in the Indian Ocean and the South China Sea.
Little fact check, however. Guess who really gets to take credit for the formation of the Quad? Donald Trump. The Quad was a key part of Donald Trump's foreign policy plan. US President Donald Trump announces revival of Quad, says working with Pakistan to counter terrorism. Joe Biden's a weak, wounded animal. Everybody knows it. Trump is surging in the polls, and Democrats are desperately playing defense to protect their weak, wounded boy. Chris Wallace at CNN presents this idea.
The Washington Post has a recent poll out that shows that Joe Biden is in serious trouble as he seeks re-election in 2024. Let me put some of this on the screen. Does Mr. Biden have the mental sharpness to serve effectively as president? 32% said yes, 63% no. And when Democrats were asked who they want the party to nominate in 2024, 36% said Biden, while 58% said someone else. Congressman, wouldn't Democrats be better off picking another person as their nominee next year?
Well, I don't think so.
Then accuses the Democrats of stacking the deck to protect Joe Biden.
But isn't Biden, in effect, stacking the deck, moving states that he knows he can win, even if there's no chance he can win them in the general election? And South Carolina is a perfect case because he lost it to Donald Trump 55% to 43%. Moving states that he knows he's going to do well in early in the nomination process, and thereby kind of giving him an easy glide path to nomination.
I don't think you're stacking the deck. I think you're avoiding embarrassment. And that is what he is attempting to avoid here.
And Jim Clyburn tries to push back against it a little bit, but essentially admits the truth, that Joe Biden is just trying to avoid embarrassment, and what they mean by avoid embarrassment is avoid democracy, avoid actually respecting the will of the voters themselves. My perspective is that Democrats continue to go on the offensive, attacking Donald Trump when he's not even the president anymore, wasting all of these resources, focusing all of their rhetoric on going after Donald Trump, which would be one thing if Donald Trump was president and they're trying to take him out of office. It's another if they're currently holding the Oval Office and the Senate. They're wasting all of their time trying to take down Donald Trump as they fail to deliver actual results benefiting the American people. I think a lot of people are looking to the past and thinking at the back of their mind that one sentence that we've said so many times, maybe Donald Trump wasn't that bad. He's surging in the polls, and you'll love to see it. That's what I got for you guys. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to leave a like and possibly subscribe to the channel. Of course, you know that we'd love to have you here. Thanks for watching, friends, and I'll see you on the next one.